All right, we're back, folks.
We're back. We are back.
Yeah, I think I can hear you okay. It's hard. It's so hard because it always sounds fine to me.
I mean, you're the one fucking me. You're the one who would be hearing the difference. For the people listening, we're referring to the this awful journey with my mic where for so long it was like the mic is too hot, I'm too loud, I should kill myself, yada yada yada. And then I pushed the mic back. I tried to please people, which is a terrible idea. I pushed the mic back, and then the critique for last time was like, I can barely hear Raanan, which I've never heard in my life, that statement. So that was nice to hear.
The pleas to kill yourself have remained constant throughout the podcast.
That's true.
Which is important. I mean, that's good. So, and I made this note before. If you duck down a little bit, you got a haircut. It looks a little bit like you have a ponytail. I like to imagine this episode that Raanan has a dangling ponytail and it's pulled tight.
So amazing if I just turned and there was just a fucking ponytail.
Right it'd be great.
Like, but Bill Paxton in True Lies. I feel like it's a ponytail.
This is the longest we've gone without recording, so it's exciting to see you. One person was like, "I guess this podcast is dead," and I was like, "Jesus!" It's like we're 2 days late. It's a leisurely podcast, and it's coming out on audio soon.
Yeah, it's coming out. Yeah, I've been looking through all the pods, and I've been going through each one. It's great. It's a good show.
It's a good show. I think it's great, and I think the more people hate you, the better for me. But
I'm calling Suicide Hotline each week. I'm like reading the comments to the Suicide Hotline person.
Well, the comments from the Louis episode are hurtful too, because it keeps most of them are just pointed at you, but some are like these two retards, and I'm like, hey, fuck it up. And also, here's what's funny. I mean, going back, I don't want to keep talking about the comments and everything, but you talked about how they're all sycophants and worshiping Louis, which is a great rant, legendary rant, and they all push back on that. But the people that were mad at something, people are mad at your interpretation of films. But Louis is the one that was like, Stanley Kubrick was an introvert. He was isolated. He was crazy. And all these people are like, actually, that's not true. He had a whole... But Louis is the only one actually giving bullshit information. That should be angering to them. They're just mad at your opinion. You're a piece of shit, but he's a genius who just says something a little...
Well, also, I had to re-listen to the pod because I'm getting it ready. And I'm so oh, go ahead. I'm so respectful to him the whole time. Just like, oh, very interesting. I'm sorry if I interrupted. At one point, I'm like, Joe, you speak... Like it's just like insane that they think I'm interrupting. It's just so saying the different interpretation that they think I'm interrupting him the whole time when it's just a conversation.
Right. And then they're like, Raanan, he doesn't get Kubrick. How dare this piece of shit criticize Kubrick? And Louis, God bless him. I mean, he might listen to this also, but he's the one that's like,
to this and he really's got nothing going on. That's
but he's the one that was like, I don't know, there might just be the same extras. The same two actors are in two different scenes. He's like, that's probably a mistake. Why aren't people like, fuck Louis? He thinks Kubrick would fuck up like that. He's a genius. So there's proof right there that it's complete horseshit that they hate you. I guess it's not horseshit. It's just that they don't like you as a person.
The hate subsided, and we're back to our fans. We're only like some fans hate me, I get messages by every day. Like people are like, it feels weird because the messages are like, hey, I love you on the pod. I don't know why everyone bullies you. They're like reassuring messages, which is a little like they're just like, I think you're stay strong, don't listen to them. It's a little like upsetting, but they, I got my fans.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, we have to point out that the thing has 50,000 views. That's like 49,000 people that didn't comment at all. So people love you. You're doing great. A great comic. I stand by that. That one I can, the movie opinions, you're on your own. But the stand-up, that is important to say these are hilarious. But I think this one is going to not be a contentious episode. I'm going to just say right now, we're talking about 3 masterpieces of cinema. I mean, this is the 3 best movies, pound for pound. This is the best episode as far as movies, and I don't think we're going to disagree very much.
I'm so excited. I mean, we'll talk some flaws and stuff, but I'm so excited for this episode. I love serial killers. I was into true crime back when it was kind of weird to be into true crime. Like everyone's into it now. I was into it like when it was like no one was, and it was just freaking people out. And I love serial killer shit, and I love serial killer movies, and I love psychopathology, and these movies are 3 of the great thrillers, and I'm so excited. I rewatched them. I'm excited to talk about them.
I didn't get a chance to watch Psycho, but I've seen it 500 times. Is there a Jewish serial killer? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, Berkowitz.
Son of Sam. Yeah,
besides Berkowitz. Yeah, I forgot about the most famous serial killer.
And he's trying to get, even he's like, my dog told me to do it. He's like, he can't even like man up for it himself. Though apparently he admitted to that being a lie.
Speaking of Louis, that's one of the great early Louis bits.
What's the
bit? He said his dog told him to do it. But he's like, even if your dog tells you to do that, you should be like, no, bad dog. Bad dog. It's great. I got a video of him when he's like 20 years old doing that bit. It's terrific.
That's such a funny bit. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, he's a Jewish serial killer. Yeah, there's the real serial killers, and then there's serial killers in the movies, which we're going to be talking about the differences. We got to start with Silence of the Lambs, I think.
Sure.
Did you rewatch?
I rewatched. I mean, again, this is a movie. This movie lives just outside of my top 10. It's right there. And ultimately, while I'm watching it, I'm like, do I really like Apollo 13 better than this movie?
Yeah, Apollo 13, whatever.
Well, Apollo 13 is fun. It gives you a cheer and a goosebump. But anyways, my point is, this is a masterpiece. It's the last film to sweep the Oscars. Thank God American Beauty didn't win Best Actress, so they didn't get to do it.
Which, by the way, every time I watch Silence of the Lambs, I am baffled that this won Best Picture. I get that it's a great movie, but it is the weirdest fucking movie to ever win Best Picture. A movie that got all the Academy Awards, a movie where a guy wears women's skin on him while dancing with a mangina. Like the fact that this movie won Best Picture is such a, I mean, I'm not saying it's like insane. It's just so interesting that is there any other movie that weird to win Best Picture?
Well, I mean, Schindler's List. You got the kids hiding in a pile of feces. You got
that happened. Yeah, but like that, that happened. Well, the Silence of the Lambs is just like, it's just definitely the most like perverted movie to win like Best Picture. You know what I mean?
And by the way,
they're not wearing Jewish skin in like, Schindler's List, the Nazis.
Yeah, you're wearing Jewish skin right now, but it came out in February too, which is also extremely rare. It got delayed for whatever reason, and most, as we know, most Oscar movies come out in the holiday season. It's Oscar season, they call it. But this one came out at the beginning of the year. Movies like that never get buzz like this. And also, I think we talked about earlier, the second shortest screen time for Best Actor.
For Anthony Hopkins?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the first?
I don't know. I thought you told me on this podcast in like the early episode. It's somebody was like 40 seconds less than him.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a prestigious movie, but it is like, I mean, yes, if someone would have told you back then that the movie that's going to win Best Picture is going to come out in February, and the inciting incident is going to be someone throwing cum in a woman's hair, you would be a little surprised. Which is, my friend pointed this out. This is the inciting incident. Multiple Migs throws cum at her hair that makes Anthony Hopkins get really upset. And he goes, Clarice, come back here. And then he feels so bad for how she was treated. He gives her a clue, which involves her in the case because she finds the head. So essentially the inciting incident is a guy throwing cum at a woman and it hitting in her hair. That's page 12. Let's get this journey going. Right.
Which I got to say, I wouldn't mind cum whipped at me. It seems kind of fun. But also, how about the idea that these guys, these are the lowest of the lows, the scariest, most dangerous, crazy guys. And one of the guys is like defensive of her. He's like, Migs, come on, buddy. Don't throw cum at our visitors.
That's very inappropriate in this criminally insane mental institution that looks like a haunted house. That's the thing about this movie. This movie is great, but it's also very silly. But like, it's a great Hollywood movie. I mean, it is, but it's a great Hollywood movie. But if you think about it for more than a second, like it's a mental institution. It literally looks like it's from the 1700s. It's just like,
do we not have mental health care problems in the United States of America?
But I don't think it looks like Arkham Asylum. I don't.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I buy it. I mean, you watch documentaries all the time on stuff, Netflix, HBO, and there's crazy prison systems, crazy mental hospitals. This was 30 years ago.
You know what? This might be a contentious episode, actually, because I realize, like, this might be. You're gonna think, well, I love Silence of the Lambs, but I also recognize that it's very silly and at times kind of like a B movie, but it's also great and emotionally really awesome.
Well, I can recognize some silly parts. One being when he sets, I'm going to jump ahead, but I want to come back to these scenes.
Yeah, let's,
but,
yeah, come mm-hmm.
But when he sets up the situation at wherever the fuck they are, at City Hall or the library, wherever the fuck they are, when they're keeping Hannibal for the moment.
Yeah.
Before he gets transferred. The thing he does where he disembowels the cop,
I know
what you're taken like 7 hours.
Well,
he had to change outfits. He had to change his outfit. He had to change the cop's outfit, put on the face, put up the bunting, the banners, hang them. I mean, that would have taken like a day.
It's insane. Well, it goes back to the fact that Hannibal Lecter is kind of a homosexual. Like, he's a very catty gay guy in this movie, to the point where even when he breaks out of the prison, he's very interested in the feng shui of that room. Like, he changes the lighting when he breaks out. Like, if you watch with the guy there, the guy is there and he has spotlights like aimed at different areas. So he's literally breaking out of prison. And before he breaks out, he's like, let me make sure the mood in here is really great before the other cops come in. You can see it. The spotlight, 3 spotlights are aimed this way, and then 1 is aimed at the guy's head. It's just like an amazing, it's hilarious that he would spend that much time doing that.
And you'd think somebody would come up there. Somebody would be like, hey, we're
middle of him doing it.
Cops, let's go see. Yeah, which is such a funny idea. Exactly. He's on a ladder and he's like, could you hold this?
And he just looks like he's putting up a banner at senior prom. He's just like, oh shit, I thought I'd have time to do this.
He's like, fuck. And he'd have to get to the roof of the elevator, put the guy there in the outfit. So it is that part. You do have to suspend some disbelief. But I want to go back. I want to go back to Dr. Chilton, who's like the real bad guy. Like, he's the least likable guy.
And also
Buffalo Bill is a little bit more likable than him.
Oh yeah. Dr. Chilton, first of all, I forgot how over the top he is in this movie. He's literally a bad guy from an Adam Sandler movie. They might as well have had Shooter McGat or whatever his name. I was going to say the head of the Proud Boys. What's his name?
I have no idea.
Happy Gilmore, Shooter.
I don't know. I'm not an Adam Sandler. I hate Adam. I don't care for Adam Sandler or the Proud Boys.
But Chilton is so over the, who do you hate more? You don't have to answer. Chilton is like so over the top in this movie. It's hilarious. I love it. But it
never was a deal. Yeah, no. No, it's crazy. But I want to talk about, first of all, that great sequence where they walk down. I mean, first of all, this is a feminist movie way before feminism. Like, if this came out now, I would be rolling my eyes of like, oh, here's another one. But it was so early on. I mean, no one was doing this then. And I point to it when people talk about how like women didn't have roles or whatever. This is a fully feminist movie.
Yes. And it's also like, I mean, maybe you roll your eyes now, but I think in many ways it's a little subtle. It kind of captures something. I mean, sometimes it's maybe a little exaggerated, but it captures something I never know as a man, but the amount of looks men give who want to fuck you. Like the movie is so they call the male gaze or whatever. There's so many, not gay people, the male gay, Gaze. Yeah. And, but like, it's so like, there's so many moments where it's just men look at her like they want to fuck her and she just has to ignore that.
Yeah, and every character is basically looking almost directly into camera, so you kind of feel that. They make you feel that, but she's looking off camera. I mean, it's such an amazing movie. She's looking off camera, but every character is looking directly. It's a close-up.
The master of the close-up, this movie has so many amazing close-ups from the POV of the other person, and it makes it such an intimate. The movie is such an intimate experience in that sense. Like I don't think I've seen a movie with that many close-ups. From the POV of the other person.
And the POV almost always of her. So everyone's kind of staring at her and she gets in the elevator with all the FBI agents at the beginning. And then before they examine the body, there's all those guys and she kicks them out and it's great. I mean, it's just spectacular. And there's so many great instances like that. So much great stuff. But I love when she goes downstairs, each door squeaks and makes a noise. It's like, and it's going into like this pit of hell.
And it is the pit of hell. And that's what I like. And that's what's interesting about the movie is like, the movie's not a realistic depiction of, mental institutions, but it is a very awesome fable of someone going into hell. And the movie a lot of times I think feels like an old Universal Studios horror movie where it has all this kind of like over the top imagery. That's really like, there's literally a red light.
Yes.
When they're going, yeah,
exactly. But I mean, that's what's so beautiful about it. So it's sort of homage-y and it is this journey. But what's amazing about it is ultimately this journey of this woman. And it's one of the latest in a movie, like title reveals, like plot reveals that it's like we're 3/4 of the way through, before you kind of do the Silence of the Lambs thing is revealed, and that she needs to do this to save
one of the greatest scenes in movie history. But I think that scene. But yeah, I mean, what's great about this movie to me, I mean, the movie has serial killer shit, but to me, this movie is like archetypally a hero's journey. It is like an old classic traditional story with all the great tropes of any like great. To me, it's almost more like an adventure story. You know what I mean? It has that traditional feel to it, and like. I do want to talk a little about her going through the stairs. So she goes down there. So much. This movie has no fat on it. And so many things happen so quickly in this movie. Like she's finding a dead body by like 10 minutes into the movie. And she's a student at the school. Like she's a student and she's finding a dead body. But I do want to talk a little about how we have the same bit. We got to talk about this. The other silly thing about this movie.
Right. Yeah. It was interesting because I wrote mine like in my second year when I was 19, but you kind of do yours still.
Well, I don't do it because I recorded it on my album. I never heard yours, but mine is, yeah, we both apparently talk about it, which is that.
What do you mean apparently? That's kind of accusatory. That's a little bit accusatory that you're like, apparently, I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, you had your bit before mine. I just never heard your bit.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, keep going.
but so the bit, whatever, we don't have to go to the bit, but the idea is just that like the insanity that a guy is a cannibal, a very rare proclivity. And this one guy who's a cannibal just happens to have a first name that rhymes with cannibal. And it's the only name that rhymes with cannibal, I think. So it's like, no one in the movie's like, that's odd.
Yeah, no one's like Hannibal the cannibal. That's crazy. Okay, keep going. But still,
yeah,
I mean, that's
no
weird.
one's like, yeah, it's kind of. I mean, everyone thinks they're like Hannibal the cannibal, but no one's like, it's weird that kind of worked out really nicely, didn't it? Like, no one's like that, you know.
Yeah, my joke was who wrote this movie, Dr. Seuss, and then I would say there's a movie about Blurderer the Murderer, and then this is edgy back then. I was like, and they're working on a movie called by a guy named Thapist, and that one's gonna be.
That's funny because mine was on this cell we have Giles Japist.
Yeah, so same. I mean, not hard to come to that conclusion, I guess.
But yeah, so that's like a hilarious thing that makes it. Once again, I love this movie, but I'm also aware that it's a ridiculous movie, but I love it.
I got like, two things that annoy me in the movie, but or whatever. Again, I'll suspend my disbelief.
I got a couple big calls. Yes.
Twice she's going to look for something, one at your self-storage, and she just immediately goes through this entire storage place. It's huge. Goes straight into the hearse and pulls the thing. Is like, ahead. Like she finds that. And then later, more egregious is when she goes into Frederica Bimmel's bedroom and just stands in the bedroom for like a second and then sees a music box and then cracks open and finds exactly what she needs. Where you're like, this woman is like unbelievable at hide and seek or whatever.
Well, I think there's I want to go back, but I do think here's to me the moment that actually to me really doesn't make sense to me. Maybe you'll have different. I mean, it's at the end of the movie. Should I talk about it now or should we go back? I'll just talk about it now. Yeah. We'll talk about holes in it. So there's this amazing part where Clarice goes to old Mrs. Lippman's house while Scott Glenn and the FBI are going to James Gunn's actual house in Chicago or somewhere. And they do that great cutting. It's a little cheating, but it's great.
Right.
Where the FBI rings the bell and then you see Buffalo Bill and you realize it's a different house. But then they break in and the one black cop who's never seen in the movie comes out. He's like, there's no one here. And then Scott Glenn, it zooms in on him and he goes, Clarice. But here's my question. Why is he worried about Clarice? He has no idea where she is.
Well, no, he knows where she is. She's in the town looking into Frederica Bimmel.
But isn't that a bit of a stretch that just because he knows she's looking in that town, he's like, because all she told him on the phone was, he cuts out the skins and he's doing that. And then he goes, we found him. We're going right now. And that's all he knows. So why is he like, it almost seems like somehow it seems like he knows she's going to the house with Buffalo Bill. And yet he doesn't have that information.
Well, here's what I would say. I think that's an interesting point, and I don't think it's a bad point, but he knows what I just referenced, that she's got this nose. She's a great detective. He's learned that. She knows she's on the beat. And okay, this was a fake house. He's not here. He's in that town. And the fact that he cuts her off earlier, he's like, no, I know. He knew the first girl. Okay, great. So
I've watched the scene. They don't really go into like him, like you don't. I mean, maybe it's not in the movie and it's there, but you don't really have her go. I think he's in the first time. You know what I mean? It's a bit of a stretch, I'd say, for him to truly be worried for her. But I get it.
He believes in her. He believes that she's still on the case. She's looking for Buffalo Bill actively. And he's like, okay, I think he's saying, we didn't find him. Shit. What if she has no backup? Nobody's there. I know she's looking for him. I know how tenacious she is.
Let me ask you this. Do you think they could have developed that a little more? Like maybe have her like say, I'm going to this house. You know, I don't know. I mean,
if this is what we're coming up with, it's a pretty fucking brilliant movie. I mean, I think he's just in that moment goes, shit, she's looking for him. And it's a little convenient, but it works. And I didn't need it, I guess.
This is what's interesting about this movie and Hollywood movies in general. It's like this movie, a lot of things in this movie probably don't make a lot of sense, and yet it's so entertaining. Because it's just like, it probably doesn't make sense that an FBI student would be uncovering a murder and like this, like would be going out herself to like investigate. I mean, she's a student, but like, it's such an entertaining movie. Once you suspend your disbelief, it's also crazy that like Buffalo Bill happens to kidnap the daughter of a senator. And that's not even really like, that's just a thing that comes in halfway through the movie. Like that's like a plot of its own. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. It's crazy that a daughter's like, the stakes in this movie are so high.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it's so great, but also how scary Buffalo Bill is, which we should talk about. And we've talked a lot about Silence of the Lambs in the podcast because we talked about that surprise when we talked about Fight Club. I brought it up, ringing the doorbell in the face thing. We've talked about it there, and we also talked about, I think I alluded to it, how I think the most effective line in any movie ever is in It's Wonderful Life when he says, good idea, my big brother, George Bailey, the richest man in town. The second most effective line in any movie is, you don't know what pain is. That is like fucking horrifying to me.
That scene is so amazing because it's so like, first of all, I actually, rewatching the movie, I find Buffalo Bill as an actor, way more captivating than Hopkins. Honestly.
Absolutely.
He's just amazing. Like, Hopkins is like, comes off a little over the top now. I don't know. Maybe it's just become like a cliche, but Buffalo Bill it did not get his dues. He is, and in that moment is incredible because it's like, he's trying to be a lady. You know, he's just like, put the basket in the thing. He's just trying so hard to be a woman. And then she makes him so mad and he just gives up and goes, put the fucking basket. It's just like when the manly anger comes out, it's such an amazing, his physique and his physicalities are just incredible in it.
And he's holding his shirt going, oh, he's impersonating. But also amazing. What's amazing too is that moment where she says, my mother's really powerful, but I know you already know that. And it cuts to him and he's just sewing, which is like, he's like, I don't give a fuck about your mother. Like that's such a scary thing of this woman is in this pit, which you think couldn't get any more scary. But in her mind, she's like, okay, they're holding me hostage. They want money. And this guy's like, your mother. I don't give a shit about your mother. I'm going to kill you and make a suit so I can be a woman.
I'm not into politics.
Right.
I'm not like a, Democrat trying to, get someone in the seat. I just want to wear your skin.
He probably is a Democrat though. I mean, let's be honest.
No, because he has a swastika blanket.
Oh yeah. That's what I want to say. That's the thing I don't love is that I'm like, why? I don't like that he's a Nazi. Like, I don't get it. They don't need that.
I'll say this: his ideology is really all over the place. He's like wants to be transgender, but can't because he's too violent. But I guess he is kind of. I assume he's pro LGBTQ because he wants to be transgender. But he's also a Nazi, and I feel like he should know Nazis are not for sex changes and becoming like a woman.
No,
so
I can't imagine so.
He doesn't realize the conflicts, but I don't know, maybe he just likes the design. Maybe he's one of those douches who like, no, I just like the original Sanskrit or whatever the fuck the swastika is.
There's another swastika. There's a poster with a thing. I think I wrote it down. It's two Nazi eyes.
It's like a president, isn't it? Maybe he does have a political ideology.
Yeah, it has swastikas for eyes, and it says, America, open your eyes. It's a Nazi poster. So it is weird that they threw that in there. I don't get that. I think it actually takes away that he's a Nazi. I like it better that he's just a psycho. Because a Nazi does give you some kind of ideology.
Yeah, and I don't think this guy has no ideology. So I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why they throw this in.
But
what do you think they threw it in?
I don't know. Maybe to separate him from the trans community. I have no idea. I mean, another question I think is interesting is there's American flag. There's an American motif throughout it. She's listening to American Girl when she gets abducted. When the final gunshot gets fired, that zooms in on an American flag with an army helmet, by the way. And then he has an American flag hanging. There's an American flag in almost every scene. It's over the hearse. The casket is covered with an American flag.
Right.
And I think it's just like this purely American story. Serial killers feels very American to us, and mental health, and having this guy down in a basement and the shitty healthcare.
I didn't notice, honestly. I didn't notice any of the American flag. I know the imagery I noticed was the cats. Did you notice the cat imagery?
Well, she has a cat, right? And it cuts back to her after she's abducted.
So the cat, there's a cat she has, and that cat's meowing when they throw the dress, when Buffalo Bill throws the dress on the street, when he kidnaps her.
Right.
But then there's another cat at the end who basically helps Clarice realize there's a dress in the closet that has the things.
Right.
So there's a cat associated with both kind of bookends of the dress and the cutting out too. And I don't know what that meant either, but like, I don't know the American flag. I mean, that is a bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the American element in this movie is.
Well, I guess the power of a senator is in there too, and politics, and how are we creating these monsters? I suppose.
I think the guy who just like helped build his basement, which by the way, what kind of he looks like a furnace in a high school. What kind of basement is that?
Another thing that doesn't make sense that Sarah pointed out. The basement is bigger than the house. It's like there's two it's way too spacious. It doesn't quite add up.
It's not a basement. Like that's not a basement. Is like a place with like foosball and like a TV. It's not a place with a giant well.
Right.
That's a cave. He has a cave. He's
and like tons of levels and floors and all this crazy shit.
And yeah, I do agree. It is weird. I think the guy designing it, they just threw in a lot of shit that did, like the Nazi blanket. There's like a Dukakis poster. You're like, what is this guy? Like, you just don't like. I think there's just some bad. I think they just threw shit in to look scary. Like swastika poster. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I think it's very like. I think it's very half-assed and like, inconsistent. But I mean, maybe it's some toxic masculinity or something. I don't. To me, the movie like. But that is interesting that there's American flags so much in the movie. I didn't notice that.
It's a lot. It's in like most of the scenes. And like I said, American Girl is the song.
Right.
So there's a lot of interesting things. One thing is Anthony Hopkins, I remember, tried not to blink at all. Like he was like some kind of monster. It makes him less human, which is an interesting thing. I think he only blinks like once or twice.
Interesting. And he based it on Hal, by the way, from 2001.
Right. Interesting. I'm going to talk about Kubrick a little later also.
Awesome. Can't wait. Well, to me also the movie is interesting about gender. I mean, there's so much to me. What's interesting, what I thought watching again, it's like you have Jodie Foster wanting to work in a male dominated field. So she's like trying to break out of her gender expectations and she's succeeding. And then you have Buffalo Bill trying to break out of his gender expectations by becoming a woman and he's failing miserably. And so they're both kind of at war with each other, the one successfully doing it and the one failing at it. And so you have this weird gender thing. And then, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound like offensive to like homosexuality, but like Lecter, if you think of Lecter as a catty gay man, that pretty much is his character. He's just like, Senator loves a suit. Like he's just like he's like a character from Will and Grace. I mean, obviously the one character, like he's a very much a sassy gay man.
And even the beating he administers on the cops is very, it's very kind of dainty. Yeah.
I don't like, if you had to imagine him having sex with someone, that character, it would be a man, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah, I suppose so.
And he's just catty. He's just catty and just like, I don't think the answer is on those second-rate shoes you have. Like he's just so much like.
And at the end, he's wearing like a nice long wig and like a little hat.
So you got a woman trying to work in a man's field. You got a man trying to become a woman. You got another guy who's kind of a catty gay man. So there's a lot of interesting things about. It's a very queer movie, you know.
I suppose so. I mean, I think it's a decent point, and it's just
decent. I think
it's just
better than decent. No,
I mean, the gay thing is, I'm going to say decent. I mean, I don't know. But it's just a fucking brilliant movie. And it's one of these movies where, similar to Psycho, which we're going to talk about, where this bad guy, Hannibal Lecter, you kind of are rooting for a little bit. You're kind of thrilled that he gets out because he's being abused himself, just like Norman Bates. Later, you find yourself rooting for.
Well, he kills assholes for the most. I mean, I assume those cops weren't assholes or the guys in the ambulance, but
I know. Actually, the cop Charles Napier seems so nice. He's like,
actually, Actually, I guess he doesn't kill. I guess he doesn't kill assholes, but he
kills Chilton.
He wants to kill Chilton, who's
and he's
asshole.
being abused by Chilton. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. What makes him so likable? I guess it is interesting. He is likable. Well,
he's helping Clarice.
But here's the other thing. He's not like. What's also funny about the movie is he could literally tell her who it is at any moment. Like he knows who it is. So he's just playing mind games the whole time. Like he could at any moment be like, "It's James Gunn."
But he needs something to do. Yeah, he needs something to do. He's in there. I mean, he's in like these torturous conditions. But he's incredible. Buffalo Bill's incredible. Scott Glenn is great. Amazing. I mean, it's just it's got mystery. It's got a little bit of comedy. It's fucking horrifying at times. There's great twists.
And I do think like I just want to go back to the beginning. I think I've brought up this point before, but like when the cum gets thrown on the hair.
Yes, yeah.
And you see Hannibal Lecter, he's in a glass cage.
Yes.
And Miggs, I think I've told you this. Miggs is in just a bars.
I've brought this up too.
The big hole in the movie, if you're going to give one person a glass cage and you have a guy who throws cum at people who walk by, you give him the glass cage. You don't give the guy who might bite you.
Right. I guess it's, by the way, you can't swallow your tongue is another.
That I don't even know what that meant. Yeah.
That one's weird. Yeah. I mean, like, it's just like, oh, he talks to you. I mean, like, that's a tricky one, which is like, he talked him to death. And you're like, all right, I guess.
Well, whatever. Also, like, what? I've always been confused. Like, so cannibals kill you. If I was a cannibal, right, I would kill you and then I would cook you and eat you, right?
Right.
I don't just start biting your hand.
Well, so I think
Hannibal doing both is the biting part of the kid. I feel like this movie confuses cannibal with wolf. Like I think
I think he does both. I'm sure, like, I don't know, like I love steak. And if I didn't have steak for 8 years, I might take a bite of a raw one just to fucking woo. I mean, that's it back in his face, I think.
That's my question. Is the biting him being a cannibal, or is that him just a psychopath that has nothing to do with the cannibalism?
I think it's a little psychopath, but he's sending a message. I don't know. You know, he's just doing it for fun.
It's a very weird thing that you're like, get away. Like most murderers, you don't have to be like, get away from the cage. like most of them, you're not. If you saw Jeffrey Dahmer, you want to be like, don't touch the bar. Like it's just interesting that he's like.
But he's psychotic. He could grab you, smash your fucking head into the bar. I mean, break your arm off. I mean, you don't want to be near a fucking dangerous criminal.
It's also hilarious when she's telling him about like the ranch, and he just gets so vulgar. She's like, and then I moved on a ranch, and it was weird. And he's like, what did the rancher do? Did he perform?
Yeah,
fellatio on you,
right.
And she's like, what? No. He just gets like so
well. That's funny too, because he's a genius. You don't want him in your head. He's this great. He's like, oh, I bet he fuck. But then they left out. I've read about this a lot too, and I think it's in the book. They leave out a lot that Hannibal Lecter and Buffalo Bill are both victims of child abuse, which they allude to Buffalo Bill being so. But there's a whole subplot where Hannibal Lecter had been horribly abused as a child that's left out of there.
Interesting. Well, so I've read all the books. And
so you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not in. I don't know if it's in the screenplay, but in the book Hannibal, it talks about his origin, and he was in Russia as a kid, and it was during the famines that Stalin, kind of created these awful mass famines, and I think his sister was eaten by people.
Oh wow, and that's like a real like villain origin story.
Yeah. And obviously, when Buffalo Bill goes, "You don't know what pain is," he's obviously referring to some kind of abuse he's had.
Right, which Hannibal does allude to. He wasn't always this way. He was made for years of abuse, whatever.
The other, and I'm sure we got to move on, but I do want to say what is interesting about this movie too is, it is different than actual like. The thing they take out of this movie, which they take out for a lot of serial killers in movies, is neither of them have a sexual compulsion, which is kind of the root of serial killers. Usually serial killers, there's at a young age when they become hormonal, their lust and their violence intertwine, and they can only really get turned on by being violent, and a lot of it, most serial killers are just rapists and murderers who just keep on doing it. But neither Buffalo Bill or Hannibal Lecter have a sexual compulsion, which makes them less human. And it feels more like monsters. You know what I mean?
But Buffalo Bill has a sexual component. He's literally standing in the mirror saying, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. I mean, he's trying to he's talking about sex.
Yeah, he has a sexual component, but I don't think he has a sexual component. I'm sorry. He has a sexual component, but it's not to the women he's killing. Like, he's not raping them.
Right.
Like he's not raping them. Like that's the thing. Most serial killers are rapists, and there's a banality to serial killers. But this movie, like, they tend to take away that from movies. It's like the cinematic version of serial killers to make them less real and scary. Like they never rape. They're just kind of like, in this movie, they feel more like kind of like monsters and less human, you know?
Right. Yes. Very monstery. And one's a Nazi. So what's
and also Buffalo Bill gets shot at the end. He literally looks like a bug. He's like on the ground with those like weird goggles.
Right. Oh,
and then looks like a bug, you know?
The science guys slice the bug the same way the backs of the women are sliced.
Right.
Fun little moment, which just shows you how it's a nice window into like these two nerds with glasses holding a bug, Slice performing an experiment, and that's what this guy is doing. It's a real parallel.
Those
beautiful.
Guys are at the graduation at the end.
Yes,
she invited them,
which is pretty impressive. Yeah, and that's the only time she kind of gets a little flirty.
Yeah, it's also hilarious that at the end of this, when it's graduation, at first you think she's winning an award for being a brave soldier, and you're like, oh, she's been in school that entire time. like she has just graduated. Like that's a crazy senior year of like being an FBI. Like it's just insane that, oh, that's just her graduation.
Okay, we got to move to Psycho. I think we should spend the least amount of time on Psycho because we just did 40 on Silence of the Lambs, and we still got The Vanishing. So, Psycho, I was a little concerned with Psycho because I'm like, what the fuck are we going to say about Psycho that hasn't already been said?
I mean, I don't know what people have said. I don't know. I haven't heard too much, but I'm sure there's obviously
it's a pretty well discussed film.
Well,
there's one scene in particular that's pretty,
but not by two assholes.
No, by hundreds of thousands of assholes.
We'll give our twist to it.
But well, a couple things with Psycho. So there's obviously parallels. Some of them are based on Ed Gein, I believe.
Yes, which is also Silence of the Lambs. The wearing skin.
That's what I'm talking about. You dumb. that's the parallels. They both take some basis in this guy,
and they both involve wearing drag or wearing, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so you didn't rewatch Psycho, right?
I haven't rewatched it, but I mean, I've seen it a lot. I watched it during pandemic even.
Yeah, I mean, Psycho is like amazing. I mean, I rewatched it earlier this year, and I was actually kind of blown away by like how good the acting is. Like Tony Curtis feels like a very modern actor, and he feels so real. You know what I mean?
Tony Curtis,
Tony Perkins.
Yeah, I was like,
who's Tony Curtis?
I'm like
Odd Couple.
I'm like, I didn't rewatch it, but I do know Tony Curtis is not in Psycho. Anthony Perkins. Yeah, I love that you're just on a first name. But Tony Hopkins, Perkins.
I think he looks a little like Townes Van Sant.
I could see that. I literally I don't know if you're a Seinfeld guy. Oh, you are. Lloyd Braun. When I first saw Seinfeld, I thought Lloyd Braun was, and my dad was like, that doesn't add up. And I was like, it's him. Like I was like 14. I was like, that's him. That's fucking Anthony Perkins.
Also, not to go back to Silence of the Lambs, but I totally forgot that George's boss from Seinfeld is one of those.
Oh yeah, Kruger. Yeah. One in the leg. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Psycho's. Yeah, we'll spend the least amount of time. Psycho's great. The music is not just suspenseful, but beautiful. Like the first part is like is all suspenseful, but then it goes into such a kind of sublime kind of the next part of that score is so amazing. And yeah, I mean, Hitchcock is just incredible visually. Like the first opening with her when she takes the money, there's an amazing shot visually of you see the money on the bed, and then the camera just pans to a suitcase being packed. So right away, you know she's leaving. It's like he does such great visuals without having to use dialogue. And yeah, I mean, it's an amazing movie. I mean, it is similar to Silence of the Lambs in the sense that it is like, a guy has a very weird, like, trying to be a woman essentially,
Yeah. And it feels like when she's in the storage place in Silence of the Lambs, it's like a direct homage to Psycho, where one of the first things she sees is a big bird, like a stuffed bird with the eagle.
Right.
Which I'm like, oh, that's a clear homage.
That's a real foreshadowing in Psycho, and very much a red flag when Tony Perkins is like, "You eat like a bird." Also, I stuff all these birds everywhere in this room,
right?
And you remind me of the thing I stuffed.
And her name is Crane.
Oh, right. Interesting. I will say this. I think Psycho, I think it's a mistitled movie.
Interesting. I'm listening.
You like how I paused to let you take it in?
Yeah. Like, ooh. It's really going for it.
Psycho is a psychopath, and a psychopath is someone who actually does know the difference between right and wrong, and kills and like is. You put psychopaths in jail. They know the difference between right and wrong. They just don't have any, conscience, right? But they know it's right and wrong in the sense that they'll murder and hide the body and stuff. But Tony Perkins has split personality.
Right.
So he actually has split personality, which is a form of psychosis, which is not psychotic. So I just realized maybe psycho is clearly short for psychopath, right? Or wait, is it short for psychotic? Because he is psychotic. I might have just.
I think typically in our language now, you say psycho, you mean psychotic. He's a fucking psycho.
Oh, right. This is all me. I'm totally wrong about this. I was thinking psycho is short for psychopath, and I don't think he's a psychopath because he has split personality. But I just realized psycho means psychotic.
Either way, I
have to delete this.
No, it's good. It's great.
The theory fell apart as I'm saying it.
Fuck this theory. But here's what's crazy for me with this movie.
Yes.
Is I don't remember the first time I saw it. It's one of those movies that always is in my mind. But I think most people that watch Psycho now and for the last 30 or 40 or 50 years, whatever, they're aware that Anthony Perkins is the bad guy, but you have to take yourself and put yourself in this mindset of people watching it, not knowing that. Like, this is one of the most shocking movies, which we don't get to really live because now it's so much in the lexicon or the zeitgeist that everyone knows he is Psycho.
Not only that, but let's say you never were told anything about Psycho and you watch Psycho now. Because of just the way society is, I actually think you would guess the twist anyway. Right. Just because back then they were not used. I don't think they thought a movie would even dare to show someone in drag like that. So that wasn't even a possibility. But now with being more aware of that, I think if you watch it now, you'd be like, well, they never show the mother. You never see her face.
Right.
I have a feel. So you can't even if you never. So yeah, even if you never were told the twist, you would still figure it out now. There's no way to appreciate that unless you were literally living in that time. Because that movie was so provocative in the twist itself,
Right, exactly. So in some ways, nobody can fully enjoy this movie the way it's supposed to be. Also, everyone knows now that Janet Leigh, if you're watching now, is not a huge movie star. She's like, whatever. Like then she was like the star of the movie who got killed off. Less than halfway. Now so that lady died. Who gives a shit?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you watch it now, you would be like, whoa, because the movie essentially changes genres. You know what I mean? It's like a weird heist movie, and then it like changes genres. So I guess you could be like, what the fuck when she gets killed. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you would be, but it's not as shocking because you're like, wait, the star is gone? That was so unprecedented then.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. The idea that like you just assume the star, because they promoted her and stuff.
Right. She's the star of the movie.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But you do end up rooting for him when the great example is when the car's going, you're kind of like, fuck, I hope, oh no, it got stuck. Like you're kind of strangely rooting for this guy in a way.
Well, you have no one else to root for. She's dead. It's like, who else are you going to root for? You know what I mean? That's why I think the movie falls off a little in the second half. Just because you're like, who are these two douchebags? Like trying to you just don't. They try to have these new made characters, the sister and the fucking boyfriend, and you're like, who are these idiots? You kind of like,
It gets a little like adventure-y, and it's like, it's a little Scooby-Doo-ish. I mean, I got to talk about this, and my guy Roger Ebert pointed this out first. But this movie does contain one of the worst scenes ever. It's one of the great movies in the history of movies, with one of the worst, most inexplicable horse shit. They should just edit, and I can't even watch it.
It's a scene where the cop is like, they go to the sheriff's home or whatever.
It's the last scene where he just explains everything. He does like an 8-minute monologue.
It's really
not
bad.
Exactly.
Not
here's
exactly.
This, and here's this, and then that happened because this. It's
so bad, and yet it's followed by something amazing.
Yes, which it should just show.
Yes. But I think the movie gets saved by having that last scene with him in there. You know what I mean? But yes, that is like a very bad. He's just like, and yes, it's like so. Yeah, it's so. I wonder if they felt like back then they had to just explain the information, or people just be completely lost because it's such a new idea of like psychosis like that.
It feels like a studio note. Like Hitchcock made it, and they're like, you gotta please do us a favor. Tell them. By the way, Silence of the Lambs, another thing when he's on the phone at the end, he has a fly land on him and kind of
I
crawl
saw
across.
that.
Another homage to Psycho.
Oh,
So these
interesting.
movies
Yeah.
are kind of like intertwined in a lot of ways.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, yeah, that's a terrible scene. I mean, this movie is the first 30 minutes of this movie are like the best 30 minutes like ever in a movie.
Yes, I agree.
So it's just like the power of this movie that even though the second half is not nearly as good as the first half is so good, it's still a classic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the music is great. It's so beautiful. Another thing that's hard to believe is that I forget Rear Window is my favorite Hitchcock movie. That came before this, which is hard because it's like Technicolor and this is black and white. So it feels older than it is. I also think it was like the first time they showed a woman in a bra, which is great.
But that's the thing. It's black and white, but it does feel racier. And the acting feels more modern. To me, it's like Jimmy Stewart's just such an old school actor, but like Tony Perkins feels maybe because he's like effeminate a little. So it feels more like a modern man, but he doesn't have that like that kind of weird masculinity that looks like bad acting now, like the boyfriend, like, hey, so hey, so he just feels so natural. It feels like watching Marlon Brando. Like I was rewatching this movie like 6 months ago. I was in awe of how good he is in this movie. Like he is so like none of that like weird old school acting that doesn't hold up, you know?
Yeah, no, that scene where they're talking is great. I do like the first half better. In fact, like the murdering is like, I mean, the shower scene is amazing, but after that, I do lose a little. I like the fucking creepy thing. You're rooting for her. Buying the car is really
it's incredible. It's like
and panicky.
It's a nightmare. You feel the guilt and the shame in every moment. She runs away. The cops following her. He makes you feel so much guilt. It's like a bad dream. She's just like the cop keeps on following her. She knows she did something wrong. The voices in her head. It's this amazing shame. And then she gets to Tony Perkins, and they have an incredible conversation. That's just when Tony's just like, I think we're all trapped in our own little private nightmares and we can't ever get out. I mean, it's an amazing thing to say, to hear these two people conversing that. And then her realizing I should go back. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just an incredible, that whole sequence is incredible. The other thing that's kind of funny, like watching it now that it's hard to imagine, like she steals the money from the bank, right?
Yes.
But they're going to know she stole it. But she's just splitting town. But nowadays you can't do that. Like nowadays you split town, they just put a warrant out for your arrest.
Right.
But it's like the Wild West, I guess, back then, because she's just like, I'll just leave. I mean, she's not even going that far. She just go like to Bakersfield. It's like, like 30 miles away. Right. She's like, I'll just change my car and no one will ever find out. Like it is a little weird. Like, I guess they just didn't have jurisdiction between police.
Well, I mean, I'm always blown away by police work. I bring up Helter Skelter all the time, the book, the murder, Charles Manson murders.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I read the book and like, they're like, these murders are unrelated. Like they had two murders like 18 miles apart and they both had something written in blood. Like somebody took a finger and wrote blood.
But it was different words. They wrote different. It wasn't the same words in blood. One said fuck pigs and the other one said make love to donkeys. It can't be the same person.
they're just like, don't even worry about
donkeys.
It. They don't collaborate. And like another movie we talked about, Zodiac, they do such a great job of discussing that. But
it seems like in 1960, as long as you just got out of the town, not even the state, as long as you just got out of the town, you're good.
Right. And it's funny that's like no one's really they're rich people, I guess. It's from the bank and that Texas guy, who's hilarious. And that's Alfred Hitchcock's sister, or is it his wife? Fuck. I think it's his sister. That's
not his wife. The other secretary,
the comical one, the comic relief.
I think clearly saw my wedding ring. That's why she didn't flirt with me. And you could just literally see Janet Leigh go, "Yeah, sure, it's that." Not you being an ugly bitch.
I think it's Hitchcock's sister. But yeah, I mean, great movie. The shower scene is fascinating. I love that they stabbed fruit with it. What were you going to say? You hate the site. You hate the shower.
Love it, but I think the great moment is not even the great moment is the shadow of her coming through the behind the curtain. That
absolutely.
Yeah. That whole thing coming. It's also funny, like when Janet Leigh's screaming, she's looking at Tony Perkins and Drax, so she's realizing that in that moment.
Right. Yeah, like we're not, but she is.
But it's probably weird because she's like, I'm getting killed, but also it's funny. It's a guy in an old lady's outfit. like it's probably like she's probably getting killed, but also being like, it's weird. It's like Monty Python.
Right.
But he's stabbing her. The other thing, I mean, we got to talk about is just like the fact that if you showed this movie from a different perspective, you just hear him be doing all these voices in the house.
Yeah, it's a little silly. I mean, it's a little silly, and it's like it's clearly not him.
Right. Oh,
So that's a little weird. It's like, oh god, like whatever the fuck. So there's some silly, but it's also like again, you have to let it go. It's fucking 60 years old, this movie.
No, these aren't critiques. No, I don't think these critiques are at all. Like this was to me just like they did a remake of Psycho. For some reason, Gus Van Sant was like, here's what I'm gonna do for my next movie. I'm gonna make Psycho starring Vince Vaughn, and I'm gonna do shot for shot. Probably the worst idea ever in film history. But if they're gonna make a remake, they should have just done it from his perspective, where you just see him go into the house and go, "I'm home, mother," and then he just goes, bring out that woman. Get that woman out of here. He's like, mother, she's a guest. Get her out of here. All right, I'll go. Like, it'd be funny to see that in the movie.
Right.
All right, get her. And then he comes back, mother, what did you do? And then he puts off his wig and runs back.
No, I mean, it's a little silly at times, but it's great. It's like, what the fuck? It's great. It's Psycho. Come on, it's Hitchcock. He did it.
I love it.
Nice.
I love it. I mean, I actually think it's less like, I think Silence of the Lambs has sillier stuff than Psycho in a way. I mean,
that's absurd. I mean, that's absurd.
Well, Silence of the Lambs has some sillier. I don't know. There's no his name doesn't rhyme with like mom dresser upper or whatever.
No. Okay, but the name is like silly. That's weird. That is possible. It is possible for there to be a Hannibal named Cannibal. But like the guy just has two completely different voices. Like one is clearly like the same actor.
Well, that's the other question too. It's like, well, I guess I mean the story that's great. But the other question is like, is split personality a real thing?
I think it's
like
debate.
up for
I was
debate.
just reading a book about this. Yeah, there's some debate, whatever. But I mean, yeah, it's just phenomenal. I just can't wait to talk about The Vanishing. I'm worried about. But
are you pulling a Louis? Or are you going to do the? I think we should move on to the next movie.
No, I think we've discussed it a good amount, but it's hard not to just be like, it's great, it's amazing. That one scene is god awful. I can't even watch it. It's like literally one of the worst decisions ever in a movie. To have the guy just explain it. I mean, it's literally like 8 or 9 minutes. The guy just, and they're all going,
It feels very like, it feels like a PSA, like transgender in the 1960s. Some men, it feels very like.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But no, they used, like, I think melon was like all kinds of different melons for the sound they were stabbing because it has that like rough skin, but then also like mush underneath. So that's what you're hearing, which is a fun little fact.
It's so clear. My roommate just closed my door because it's like a little open. It's always such a fuck you to me. I feel like because it's like I'm being too loud. It's like it's like closed, but like it's a little he just like closes it like fully. Makes me want to kill him. All right. Anyway, so
Bernard Herrmann.
But yeah, beautiful score.
He's a Jew.
Yeah. So wait. There was one other thing I was gonna say about Psycho. Yeah, it's a brilliant movie, and it's and it has like, I mean, they're both, we can critique these movies and still love them. You know what I mean? And they're both brilliant movies. Yeah. Split personality is a thing that it's like, I don't know. It's a thing that like killers also try to say to get away with it. You know what I mean? Like that's what Son of Sam said, like his dog told me, but like, you know what I mean? Or shit like that. But like, I think for the most part, when you're killing someone, it's you.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. There was a doc. That's what it was. It was a Netflix doc about this.
Oh, yes, about a psychiatrist who believes.
Yeah.
The case.
I watched that. Yeah.
I guess I personally don't. I personally think split personality is like, I don't know, but I also don't know anything. So,
Yeah, me either. I mean, you got a ponytail for God's sake.
I'm going to get someone yelling at me how wrong I am, and then his split personality is going to also be yelling at me, and But yeah, so let's talk about The Vanishing.
Let's get into The Vanishing. Psycho is great, and yeah, why can't I think of her name? The woman that became the Queen Scream from Halloween, whose daughter is the
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis. God, I was thinking of Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Oh no, yeah.
Okay, Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah, that's why you were thinking Tony Curtis.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that's what it is. We
Tony,
figured it out.
Oh fuck, yeah, interesting.
See, I could be like a psychologist.
So The Vanishing, I had to do it because I think this is the most disturbing movie ever, and I feel like most of our Philistine fans probably hasn't seen it yet. You know what I mean? So so we're trying to tell people to see it, right?
Yeah, I guess this is your warning. If you haven't seen it, pause here. Continue to watch
here.
Pause. Go watch the 1988. I think
not the fucking remake with
the same director, by the way.
He hacked his own shit.
It's amazing. No, this is the original Vanishing. I think it's Dutch. Is it Dutch? Am I crazy?
Yes, it's Dutch.
The Dutch 1988 film called The Vanishing. And then he remade it with Jeff Bridges and
Kiefer Sutherland.
And it stinks on ice. I never actually watched it. I'm saying it stinks. I didn't watch the remake.
Who's like, all right, we got a movie about a weird, awkward sociopath. I know who to go with. Jeff Bridges. Between this and Psycho getting Vince Vaughn, people are really bad at recasting psychopaths.
Well, here's the thing with the movie. The reason they had to do it is because they know no fucking American will watch a subtitled movie, even if you're like, it's the best movie ever, which we're telling you right now, this is one of the best movies of all time. But the people that are reluctant to watch a subtitled movie are going to find this movie boring.
Right. Well, yeah. And to me, this movie, look, Silence of the Lambs, and rewatching it again, it's interesting because, like, obviously, Silence of the Lambs and Psycho are much better technically as movies. You know what I mean? They have bigger budgets. They have better, they're made by two, technically they're better movies, but Vanishing.
I'm not even sure I agree with that. It's not like this points to The Vanishing where you're like, but look how stupid this is. I mean, it's pretty technically sound.
There's one awful POV because they have, like, Silence of the Lambs has the great POVs. Do you remember there's the worst POV in this? Do you remember what it is?
I know the worst moment of the movie, but it's not a POV. What is it?
There's a POV from the psychopath's perspective, but they do it through his glasses. So you see his glasses, like, it's basically they put glasses over the camera.
Oh, right.
So you see his glasses like through it's just like the silliest thing. But yeah, I mean, it looks a little, it obviously doesn't have the same budget. It looks a little like, it's very much an independent film, isn't it? Or maybe they just don't have great filming.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just the 80s. I don't know. I don't know. I don't watch it as like, oh, look at this cheap movie.
Either way, The Vanishing is the most disturbing movie I've ever seen.
There is one. I always want to jump to the worst, dumbest scenes because we can laugh about it.
Yeah.
But it's gotta be, it's the worst. It's when there's finally a conference.
Oh, let me guess.
There's a spoiler. Okay, go ahead.
Let me guess. Cause I gotta do the guessing. Is it him running around the trees before he decides to drink?
Oh, that one's weird too. That one does take you out of it. You're like, what?
Is he circling the tree? Like, what is he doing?
Yeah, and it's like slippery and wet. That's not it. It's when that guy attacks. There's finally a confrontation. He attacks him and he just flails his arm. He doesn't hit him in the face. It's almost like they had a deal. He's like, all right, I'm the guy that killed your wife, but no, hit me in the face. And he's like, I mean, he has like a straight arm. It looks like if I was a woman, I mean, I'm a man. It's the biggest turnoff ever. It's just like, no, you killed my wife. And he's kind of like tackling him.
Hey, he's not a fighter. That's how I'd fight.
They didn't have the you talk about the technical. They didn't have the makeup to like fucking punch somebody in the face.
Yeah.
Saying that he wouldn't like curb stop him. He's literally giving him a Charlie horse. The guy's goes into the field position and he's kicking him in the thigh. And you're like, why would
like say uncle? I'll say uncle when you tell me where my wife is.
It's like stomp on his organs. Like you could do damage. Like anybody, you don't need to train in fighting, which I do. You don't need to know that like kicking somebody in the thigh is like the nicest place to be kicked. You got to stomp their fucking kidneys in.
Well, he has a couple weird moments, that guy, the main character, because he has the running around the tree, and then he has that part where he goes into a field and has a nightmare about the golden eggs, but that's hard for her to like get him out of it. But the way he's just like, he seems like he's in a weird comatose thing. He has a couple weird moments,
He does do weird stuff. I'm sorry. So I don't know where to start. I hope people have seen it. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it.
Should we just say the plot? No, we can't.
Yeah, we did. We gave him spoiler alerts.
All right. Well, if you haven't seen it, here's the plot of the movie. Okay. And to me, this is this is a philosophical thriller, more so than the other two movies. It's like so philosophical, but like for this movie, that a man who gets in a fight with a woman, leaves her in a tunnel, which is fucked up.
He's an asshole at the beginning.
He's an asshole. You see him smile.
It shows you how stubborn he is.
Yes. And you see him smile as she's like crying not to leave him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he's definitely a piece of shit, which is something I got from this movie more. This time I realized he's also an asshole who totally relates more to the sociopath than to the girl,
Well, it's like we talk about with all these movies, or so many of these movies, we talk about with Goodfellas and Casino, it's so much ego on both sides.
Yes.
It's a lot of ego. He can't let go. He needs to know. He needs to figure out. He needs to win. And that's what they show in that argument.
Both admire each other.
Right.
They really do. And it's like, but anyway, so So she goes, they get in a fight. They come back. They go to a gas station. They make a pact to never leave each other. They bury 2 quarters or something under the tree, which is like them being buried alive, the quarters. And then she goes into the gas station. She disappears. And she disappears. I've spoiled it in my little story by saying the buried alive part, but she disappears. And then he gets obsessed. And then basically the guy comes to him and says, I'm the one who kidnapped your wife. Drink this coffee and go to sleep. And when you wake up, you'll know what happens to her. And he does. And he wakes up and he's buried alive.
Right. And there's so much Kill Bill in there, by the way.
Kill Bill,
it's like direct Kill Bill.
Happy ending.
Now, is it true that in the remake, he punches his way out?
Wait,
seriously, that's what
you're joking, right?
I never watched the second one. Is that what happens, or is she just confusing it with Kill Bill?
She's confusing it with Kill Bill. So in the remake, so this movie ends with him being buried alive. In the remake, his girlfriend comes back and unburies him.
Really?
Yes, and then they kill Jeff Bridges.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, it's really
that's awful, because this is like if you Google The Vanishing, everything that comes up is creepiest ending, the scariest ending, best ending, the greatest ending. So to change the ending in a remake is unbelievable, because that's what this movie is known for. That's like, the thing about this movie.
Literally like remaking Chinatown, and she gets away at the end.
Right.
It's just like it's insane.
That's the story of the movie. But so a couple things. One question: what do you make of the sandwiches? One's sliced and one's not. What is that? He's like, I have sandwiches on that car ride when they finally meet up.
I didn't notice the slice thing.
Has to be the most awkward car ride of all time. I mean, so fucking funny. He finds him and he's going to drive him someplace. Oh, I wrote another line about that.
I don't know. It's weird. He shows him the sandwiches, and then he doesn't take them because he assumes they might have a post thing in them, right?
Yeah. Well, one sandwich. Oh, maybe it makes 3. Oh, that's what it must be. The sandwiches are representing, because one sandwich is sliced diagonally, the other one's not. So the one that's not is the psycho. The other one's these two halves of this other one.
You're all about the food in movie. You're a food movie theorist.
I think that's something, though. That represents, because there's 3 pieces. There's one whole sandwich, which is the psycho, and then this one that's split in half, which is him and his girlfriend.
I think you're just really hungry during these movies. No,
don't Louis me.
No, I'm not Louis you.
I'm
not Louis you. This is true.
Certainly a significant reason why one is sliced and one's not.
This is a good theory.
But he got no shit for. I'm like, what about the food? He's like, you got to eat. I'm like, so Kubrick's a genius who can't be criticized, but he just decided to put food in every scene for no reason. Come on.
They reuse those sandwiches at the end of the movie. That's what they just do with filmmakers.
And he doesn't get called a fucking idiot. All right. Anyways.
So
I'm not calling him an idiot either. I'm just saying, what the fuck?
So yeah, one of the things that's like to me, this movie is like also the kind of this great metaphor for death, where like, to me, when someone dies, it does feel like they vanished, right? You don't know where they went. And then the idea that for him to drink that potion and then he'll wake up, or not potion, not like a love potion, the sleeping pill or whatever. It's not like love potion 99, but the sleeping pill, and he'll know when he wakes up. It's almost like, to me, the ultimate metaphor is like, to really know what happens when someone dies, there's only one way, which is to die. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Perfectly put.
Yeah, the movie is the ultimate metaphor for that. Like, you are living in an eternal uncertainty until you actually go through that experience. And this is a philosophical thriller on so many. It has so much to do with free will that it's interesting. It's a very, to me, it's a very deep movie, and has a lot of interesting things to say about like free will.
Yeah. Well, also, sorry, this is not in addition to that, because I thought that was brilliant, but also the woman. Are you attracted to that woman, by the way? Because I'm extremely attracted to her.
The first one or the second one? The one who gets
the first one. The second one's ugly and she stinks.
The first one, at first I wasn't, and then I was like, I think once it's kind of like that Norm Macdonald joke, like he's loving the girl once he realizes she's gone. Like, he's like, I'd love to go on a date with her. Fuck, she's disappeared. You know that joke about the woman who gets
yeah.
Once she disappears, I'm like, yeah, she's very, very pretty, very full of life too.
Well, Kubrick, as you may or may not know, loved this movie. Stanley Kubrick thought, he loved it, and he thought it was the best thriller also, and he thought it was scarier than The Shining. He's like, this is what I wanted to pull off with The Shining.
That is fucking what I've been wanting to say. Like, this movie is scarier than any fucking horror movie. Like, to me, it's like, it is scarier than it. I love that Kubrick said that. Like, it is scarier than, because it deals with like real life, and it deals with a big part of real life is that there are things you'll just never know. You know what I mean? And that feeling and the price you pay for knowing them, you know?
Well, so this is interesting. So he loved the movie so much, he watched it multiple times, evidently, and he cast that woman. He loved her so much, he cast her in the Aryan Papers, which was going to be his Nazi, his, what do you call it, Holocaust movie. But then Schindler's List got in the way of that. What were you going to say?
No idea. That's great. I just love it. And it feels like a Kubrick movie in a lot of ways. It has that, it's like a very creepy, cerebral movie. And there's, yeah, I love the movie. I think what's interesting too with the movie in terms of like what it's saying about free will is that, like, the part, of course, in the balcony where he says, if I jump off this balcony, am I predestined not to jump off this balcony, Right. He jumps off the balcony to break fate, which is an interesting idea. Like, if I just like threw a guy, if I'm standing at a subway and there's a person in front of me, obviously I'm not going to throw him into the subway, into the oncoming subway. Does that mean that's fate, that he's not going to be thrown? But then if I just throw him, am I changing fate? And it's an interesting idea. And then, of course, there's the whole dream about the golden eggs the whole time, which
Right.
is that she had the dream in the beginning that they're both trapped in different golden eggs. And then at the end, when he gets buried alive, you see in the last moment where they show the two circles of them in the newspaper.
Right.
And then it goes black around it to show the golden eggs, which I actually think was a little over the top.
A little hokey. Yeah, I agree. I would have
think they
figured it
could've-
out on my own.
I think they could have done that without the black. If they just didn't fade it to black and just had those ovals, I think it would have been perfect. You would have figured it out. But to me, the ultimate.
What I just said, yeah. But yeah, no, I agree.
But to me, so the ultimate irony of the movie is like, there is no free will. This is, the dream does come true. It is predestined. And he was predestined to jump off that balcony because he's a fucking sociopath.
Right. I mean, yeah, so many great philosophical things like that. It's really amazing. And similarly, you don't root for him, but you kind of do also, because he's doing this weird science experiment, which is another thing that makes it scary in a different way than Buffalo Bill, who, like I talked about with the senator, my mom is famous. He's like, I don't know. He's not even listening to her. He's like, I don't even care about your mom. I'm just I have this thing. This guy's similar because he doesn't seem like a psychopath. He's got a family. He's like, seems like a genuinely good dad and a decent husband. He just has this scientific experiment he wants to pull off.
And he's bumbling, which is interesting. Like, he's a bumbling guy. He sneezes into the chloroform at one point.
Right.
Like, he's a bumbling guy to the point where by the end of the movie, you're like, this guy feels like a clown. And then you're just reminded when he buries him, like, how fucking evil he is. Like, you almost forget it for a second because they show them two both really connecting on the ride, which is really interesting. Like,
right.
Part where he tells the story about fucking up and that guy slapping him. And then
Right.
it cuts back to them in the car and the other guy, the guy going asshole. And he's referring to the guy slapping him.
Right, right.
He's getting mad for him. So you realize they're both kind of fucking egomaniacs who kind of like, and he doesn't really care about his girlfriend. He would rather see her dead than he just wants to know the answer to the question,
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's that ego thing. He has to win. He has to get it. And he's willing to sacrifice this relationship. But wait, hold on. How about...
It makes it feel like the movie is like, the movie ultimately is about two kind of psychopaths in a way, In
some ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how about the great moment too? Because there's so many little subtle things that you don't realize what's happening and then you do, where he fucking throws spiders in his daughter's drawer.
Yeah.
So she'll open it and scream, and then he's like, let's hear everybody scream. I mean, how amazing is that? See, you just have everyone and you're like, oh, this seems psychotic. And then he goes down to his neighbor and he's like, hey, did you hear any screaming? I thought I heard some screaming. And the guy's like, no, I didn't hear any screaming. And he's like, great. Where you're like, wow, that is so fucking incredible, because you're feeling as a viewer, you're realizing you're discovering what was going on and also how that's kind of brilliant. And so part of you is like, you admire this guy.
You admire this guy, and I think, out of all the movies we're talking about, I think he may be the most believable version of a psychopath. You know what I mean? I mean, there's like in the sense of just like a guy who really has his family life and then has this project he's really passionate about. And the way he's writing his pulse down, there's such a method to it. It's just like very, well, I don't know if he's the most believable, but you get into his head more than anyone's. And It's quite fucked up. I mean, obviously this movie's also just disturbing because it ends with someone being buried alive. I mean,
Right. But
but it's more than that. It's more than that.
And that great moment too, where he's trying to figure out how to abduct a woman and he can't, and then he gets his photo album and he's like, turn back that page, and he sees the cast, and he's like, wait, oh, that's out, which is ties it to Silence of the Lambs. They both use a
Which
cast,
is, of course, from Ted Bundy.
Right, exactly. And the guy, the protagonist, looks a little bit like Ted Bundy.
Oh, the main guy. Yeah.
The main guy has a little bit of Ted Bundy in him.
The psychopath looks like Louis.
He does. I said that to him. I was like, you could play this character. I have it written down here.
Has Louis seen it?
Yes, loves it. Yeah.
It is. It makes sense that Kubrick loves it because it is one of those movies where like there is like in a way it is kind of this cold movie where everyone's just kind of like obsessed with ideas. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's so disturbing. It's so effective by the end when they're buried alive and they're having a family over it, and their family's just sitting there over it. It is such a disturbing. It's such a disturbing sequence. But it's also like, it's the shock value of the buried alive is more than just the fear of being alive. It is that shock value of like, he chose to do this willingly. Right. That's what's so disturbing. He needed him not knowing what happened to his girlfriend overrided any ability for him to have empathy for anything. And it just made an obsessed monomaniacal person. And it overcame anything else in his life.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think there's a moment where when he wakes up buried alive that he thinks, oh my God, this is what my girlfriend went through? Or does that seep into his mind at all? Or is it just him going, fuck, I'm about to die. I've been buried alive. I've been fooled. He fooled me. He won. Or is he like, oh, okay, this is what happened to her?
It's interesting because that's a great point because you watch it and you don't feel like, it's hard to tell because he kind of just goes crazy pretty quickly.
By the way, I think the flame would eat up the oxygen faster too.
Yeah. That part is just so awful.
Yeah.
It's just so awful. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, we certainly realized in that moment that's what happened. I mean, I honestly think what is so upsetting in the movie is not showing what happened to her and just knowing that's what happened to her. So it's like, it's a thing you don't see. That's so upsetting. You know what I mean? And she's so full of life. And it's just so upsetting knowing that like happened to her.
Well, and it's similar to Psycho 2, again, where the female lead disappears, but the movie is driven by her.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is like, there's something about like, I think Silence of the Lambs and Psycho, I do think they're technically better made movies on a lot of levels. You know what I mean? But I do think this movie gets to me deeper. And I think the characters are probably, like, I don't know. I guess the characters of Silence of the Lambs are the most captivating to me out of any of these characters, But I do think Vanishing gets to me more than any other movie.
Now, again, I keep displaying that I'm smart enough to know things are important, but not smart enough to know what they are. What's the significance of Tour de France? Because that's throughout the whole movie. I mean, it's just that it's a grueling race, and this guy is going to pursue his girlfriend like this in this grueling way, up a hill, down a mountain, and
yeah, I don't know. I mean, you see egg imagery throughout the movie.
Right.
Because you see the golden eggs of the headlights. You see the golden eggs of the what are those balls that fall out of his car?
Ping pong balls.
You see like eggs everywhere. I mean, you could look at the bicycle as like these two eggs of wheels, but like I don't know. I mean, it definitely becomes. I don't know. I didn't personally see it metaphorically. I saw it more of like it becomes an important frame of reference for the movie.
Right.
Because you then know later, like when he sees on the newspaper, like, are they going to win tonight? Like when the psychopath sees that in the newspaper, he's going to be kidnapping her like the following day or that following, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it works as a frame of reference. And it's also what everyone else is excited about. You know what I mean? So it's like this excitement and that's driving it. So no one cares about what's happening to him.
There's also something too there in that sporting event. I know you're not a sports guy, but you do stop every day and then restart, and you're chasing the leader the whole time. You are. It is a chase.
Chasing the leader. Okay.
Yeah. So like it ends, it's timed, and then you get to a certain point, and then they go, all right, we're going to start up in this order. So you take off in that order. So you are always chasing one person,
and he's always ahead of you.
Well,
that could be it. The fact.
There's something to that.
That could be it, because essentially the guy is always ahead of you. The guy.
Right.
Guy. This is typically the kind of thing I don't like in movies like Seven, where basically one guy is controlling the whole scenario a lot. But you know, he almost has complete power, but I don't know, for some reason it works a lot in this, you know, I don't know why. It just, I guess he just seems more, I guess the fact that they show him as bumbling at times really flips it on you, you know?
Yeah, and kind of like likable as like this.
Yeah,
he's like a little bit of a goof, and his hair's silly. I mean, how great is that shot where they're sitting, him and his new girlfriend are sitting in the cafe outside in Paris, and that camera just comes around, and then slowly you see him in the balcony. Really fucking spooky. I mean, it is really spooky.
And it feels, you know, I feel it's very similar to Zodiac in the sense that they're so obsessed with the killer in Zodiac, how obsession ruins your life and how obsession ultimately becomes a metaphor for like the limitations of humanity, that there's certain things we'll never know, and that drive to want to know everything, which we can't, because we just have our very fragmented piece of life, and we'll never go be, you know, we're all groping in the darkness trying to create a narrative with very little information, you know what I mean? Right. And so we're driven by that. And to see in this, he's so driven by just not knowing what happened. And that's ultimately what being a human is. You have to live without knowing, you know. I think that's so much with anxiety. I have anxiety and I want to get to the root of it. And sometimes you have to realize I'll never know the root of my anxiety, you know? And
interestingly, this is way before Lance Armstrong, but like those athletes then too, there's something similar to this athletic thing of like, I'm just obsessed with winning, which is what he is. And to my own detriment, relationships are going by the wayside. Your life is being wasted because you're on the fucking bike up the mountain all day. You're just training. This has become an obsession, and this is your life.
Well, that's what's interesting. Like, you know, I always say with like Kubrick, sometimes the ideas overpower the humanity, you know, it's more about ideas than like characters. And this movie is so much about people being obsessed with an idea over empathy. Like, for instance, perfectly put in the part where he goes, if I had the choice between her being alive and me not knowing and her being dead and me knowing, I would choose dead every time. So his obsession has overwhelmed him to the point where he doesn't even really care about her anymore.
Yeah, he's just trying to win. Like these cyclists, he just wants to win at his own detriment, obviously.
And then by the end, they too have more of a connection. You know, and I mean, that part where they're like kind of laughing with each other.
Right.
Like, it is such a bizarre, but I do think like ultimately the buried alive at the end, it works almost like a fable where it's like, that's the price you pay.
Right.
For trying to go beyond the things you're just not supposed to know. And like, and yet again, it's also predestined. Like, that is what was going to happen no matter what.
And an unwillingness to accept. He can't accept. It's such a
scary, it also deals a lot with like, you know, Schrodinger's cat, that philosophical idea.
No.
It's like you have a cat in a box, and after a couple days, if you open the box and he's dead the minute you realize he's dead. When you open the box, in a sense, you kill him by opening the box, because that's when you realize he's dead. But if you don't open the box, he could be alive or dead. You don't know, you know? See what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but that leaves the cat's experience out of it.
Yes, but I guess the idea is
kind of mean.
Well, yeah, it's also a thought experiment involving torturing an animal. So yeah, it's very fucked up.
I mean, Jesus.
But in the idea of looking at life through your own experience, like a solipsism of it is your own experiences that define how you view other people. So essentially, in this movie, she is not dead for him,
right?
Until he wakes up. So it is essentially a version of Schrodinger's cat when he wakes up.
Right,
you know
right.
Because that's the moment where he kills her. You know, because she's obviously dead, but that's the moment where for him, he knows she's dead, you know?
Right. I'm just trying to think of that's what the cats are in Silence of the Lambs, but that doesn't add up. It doesn't add up.
It's an incredible, don't you think this is way more disturbing than Silence of the Lambs and Psycho?
Yeah, I suppose so, because it's easier to put yourself there, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, what's her toes is going through, Catherine is going through in Silence of the Lambs is more horrifying to me
than being buried alive.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, being in a pit with a fucking guy screaming at you. I mean, I don't know.
What are you crazy? Let me get this straight. You would choose buried alive over a pit that you get out of eventually?
Well, you don't know you're getting out of it, and the other 9 girls didn't. They got fucking sliced up and their skin sliced off in war. And I don't know how he killed them. I don't know how he killed them. I mean, they don't really say. And then weighed down and
he shoots them in the head. I mean, they have to fast. They have to lose weight.
Yeah, you're getting tortured, and this fucking guy comes down and says, it puts the lotion in the bath. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you get buried alive, you're dead after what, 3 minutes? I mean, that would be unpleasant, but I mean, 4 days in a fucking torture chamber, wet, cold, listening to a dog bark.
But
That's a bummer.
you finally lose weight. These are fat girls. They act. That's the tragedy. The real mindfuck is he gets them looking good, and then he kills them. And she's like, "You're not gonna let me. I'm hot now."
You took it too far. No, they're all fantastic, but no, The Vanishing is really, really tremendous film. Everybody should see it. I mean, now it hasn't even been ruined. It hasn't even been ruined. You can go watch it. I mean, watch it now, even knowing it's fantastic. But all right, let's rank these and let's put a bow on this son of a bitch.
This is a good one, huh?
I think this is the best one. I think maybe we need ones where we're not fighting because I don't get angry and yell at you.
What?
This is just beautiful. I mean, this is beautiful. 3 beautiful films.
After when I said Hannah and her sisters was bad, I thought you were never going to talk to me. Yeah,
I'm still upset about it.
Yeah, no, and I hope people realize we love these movies when we critique like movies don't have to be perfect, like for us to love them.
I know. I felt like that after reading comments. I keep going back to the comments, but I was like, I really like Eyes Wide Shut. People are like, he hates Eyes Wide Shut. He doesn't get it. I'm like, I like it very much. I enjoy it. I've watched it like 3 times.
I actually hate it. But
no, well, you hate it. But I mean, I like most of these movies we're talking about. We should watch some movies that I fucking hate, I guess, at some point, because I hate most movies. But
yeah, let's make you look like a fucking prick on this.
Well, but anyways, these are
any movie real quickly.
Movies.
Is there any movie you hate that I love?
I'm sure. I don't know. But we'll figure this out after.
Okay,
I'm sure there's some that are pretentious and stupid.
All right, let's rank them. This is a tough one. You go first.
I'm guessing yours, or I'm saying mine. I'll just say mine.
Just say yours. Yeah.
Mine. Silence of the Lambs is number 1. It's just, I just love it. I mean, like I said, it's like probably my 13th or 14th favorite movie. I absolutely love it. It's just masterful, and I've loved it for 25 years. Then probably The Vanishing, because it doesn't have a scene that is just dog shit that it's unwatchable. Psycho has an unwatchable scene in it that I have to pretend doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Just very few movies have that. So Vanishing 2, Psycho 3. But again, don't fucking email me. I love Psycho. It's a masterpiece. It's fantastic. I mean, can it be a masterpiece if there's a shit scene in it? I don't know. But I love Psycho. That's my order. Silence of the Lambs, Vanishing, Psycho.
I got the same order.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me.
I felt that instinct that, like, I wanted to, before I rewatched the movies, I would have been like, The Vanishing is the best, but I, that's how but like rewatching Silence of the Lambs. I don't know. It's ultimately I'm about characters, you know what I mean? And Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are just great. And their relationship is just so great. And one of the things that's amazing to me also is the quid pro quo thing. The fact that what a great way to get a backstory, that you have to tell your stuff just to get information. So you're not just having a monologue that no one asked for. You're not just like, let me tell you this one time my father fingered me. And like, I just asked you for ketchup. You know what I mean? Like there's an objective there.
Or worse is, I think they call it laying pipe or doing the plumbing. They could say when someone's like, well, Clarice, you've seemed a little down ever since the anniversary of your father being shot by the criminal when you still lived in West Virginia.
Yeah, reminding someone of something they both know that they already know. Right. So to me, that relationship between them two and that backstory of her wanting to save and not being able to and being haunted by that, to me, that's like an emotional core that, even though I do think Silence of the Lambs is campier now than when you maybe remember it came out. If you watch it now, it is a little campier and a little has like almost like an incredibly well-made B movie feel to it. I still think it is so powerful emotionally that I got to put that number 1. And yeah, I got to put Vanishing number 2 because I think I'm dead inside. Like I don't watch. I think my mic was bad because I just leaned in and I'm like, oh, now the sound is good.
Well, they'll be all right.
No.
Your ears adjust to sound.
Yeah. So I think, The Vanishing just, I don't know any other movie that disturbs me as much.
Yeah. I mean, it lingers for sure. I mean, it's just, it's fun. And Psycho to me is fun when you're a budding cinephile at the beginning of your life. When you're a teenager, you watch it, you're like, oh, this is the movie. But now I watch it. If it's on, I check it out. I like to watch it occasionally, but I'm like, it's fine.
I love Psycho, but it's also like, it was so groundbreaking at the time that I think when things are really groundbreaking, they tend to be a little more dated as time goes by because there's just so many other things like that. Here's the thing, Psycho's last, but I guarantee you if I saw Psycho in the theater, at that time, that would have had more effect on me.
Sure, of course.
Than any of these two movies that I saw if I saw it in theater.
Right.
So in a sense, it's the best based on that.
Yes. Well, there you go. There you have it. Those are our some of the best thrillers of all time.
Watch The Vanishing People.
Yes, The Vanishing People. That's it's a different movie.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, subscribe if you haven't already. God bless you if you've made it this far. I always just assume everyone's out about 10 minutes in. But subscribe, and we're coming to audio version soon. Raanan is working on it, so any problems, just call him a piece of shit. But that'll be out soon. We got a great, what do you call it, logo from Diego Pimentel. I don't know how he says his name.
Amazing logo. And amazing theme song by Tommy McNamara.
Oh, yeah, Tommy's so great.
I listened to it a couple times. Like, hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think you guys are going to love that when you hear it. So that'll be the audio version. Make sure you subscribe. And I got dates. I want to plug some dates.
Plug some dates.
Next Saturday, April 3rd, the Martins Theater, I think it's called, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Just Google Bridgeport, Connecticut, Joe List. I think it's Martin's Theater, something like that. May 15th, that's a big one. Austin, great film city. Linklater, baby. We got to do Linklater at some point.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Paramount Theater, I'll be there. And then Omaha, Nebraska, April 23rd and 24th. And Royersford, I'm coming back in May.
Doing all these theaters, you're taking it up a notch.
No, it's no.
Off Broadway.
It's like COVID, and it's like a festival and shit. I don't sell tickets.
So yeah, you can see me at Soul Joel's. Are you farting? Are you farting over my plugs? It's a real.
I thought it'd be funny, but it didn't work out.
Me and Caitlin Palufo are co-headlining Soul Joel's on April 1st. I hope it's not an April Fool's joke that the guy's playing with me and I'm going to get there. There's no one there, but show up too. Yeah. Cause we probably have some people from, what's that town?
Royersford, Philadelphia.
Royersford. Yeah. So yeah. Come April 1st. And then I'm going to be back in my hometown, or my original hometown, Louisville, Kentucky, April 9th and 10th at awesome new venue called Planet of the Tapes. So those are my big gigs, and come to them. I'm working. I got a new hour. I'm gonna try to record it in the fall. So
come see us at the Comedy Cellar. We'll be there. It opens up next week. Can't fucking wait.
Oh yeah, did you get your dates yet? I didn't get dates.
Oh, I got so many.
Did you really?
No, we haven't got dates yet. Relax. All right, everybody, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, thumbs up, get that algorithm going. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you.
Thank you.